Outlaw Frank James was nothing like his infamous brother Jesse. While Jesse's James preferred the spotlight, his brother Frank James preferred a good book and the company of his family. Still, his gun was always at the ready. Frank James was the older brother to the now legendary American outlaw Jesse. Although on the surface they seemed very similar, in truth the siblings were quite different. Jesse was showy, daring to the point of recklessness, and had a thirst for fame that would eventually be his downfall. Frank was shy, preferred to spend his time reading, and married a schoolteacher. What both brothers did have in common was a fierce love of their southern home and a deep resentment of the northern aggressors. Seemingly in contrast with his bookish nature, Frank joined up with William Quantrill's famously bloody Confederate guerrillas during the American Civil War. Jesse James eagerly followed his older brother into battle, and together they terrorized the countryside, attacking both Union soldiers and civilians as part of the guerrilla gang. Far from healing the nation's wounds, the Civil War left deep scars of regional divisions throughout the United States. Some in the former Confederacy harbored feelings of resentment towards the North. To the agricultural South, the post-war boom of industry and finance represented the triumph of the Union victors. Although their side had lost, Jesse and Frank were not ready to surrender their arms, and the cash-carrying trains and banks presented tempting targets. On February 13, 1866, a group of unidentified outlaws carried out the first daytime bank robbery in the United States. The robbery was notable because rather than slink in anonymously under the cover of darkness, the thieves had boldly walked in, beat up the cashier, and made off with nearly $60,000 worth of cash, gold, and bonds. Although it has never been proved, it's believed this 1866 robbery was the first committed by the James brothers and their gang. It certainly fits the pattern. Jesse's flair for showmanship combined with the gang's choice of targets would characterize the gang's exploits during their decade-long reign. Newspapers quickly realized the popularity of stories about the Outlaw brothers and eagerly published as many stories as possible about the James brothers' exploits, presenting them as heroes of the repressed southern states. James mania reached such a fever pitch in the South that the state legislature of Missouri actually came close to granting amnesty to their entire James Younger gang, despite their string of violent escapades. Jesse thrived in the spotlight and even began dropping his own press releases at the crime scenes. Frank, however, eventually tired of a life on the run. After a botched robbery, he recalled the days he had spent with his family on a farm as the happiest I have spent since my boyhood. Public sympathy for the James brothers did have its limits. The Golden Boys of the South lost their Robin Hood-like image as protectors of the poor after an 1881 train robbery. Conductor William Westfall was shot in the back as he was collecting tickets, while passenger Frank McMillan was shot straight through the forehead as he peered through a car window. There was no positive spin the formerly fawning press could put on these murders. After popular support for the brothers eroded, Missouri put out a $5,000 reward for each of them. Jesse's band of merry men clearly valued cash over loyalty, and the outlaw was brutally shot down by Robert Ford, a member of his own gang. Showing that his hold on the popular imagination had not quite broken, one newspaper wistfully reported the story with the headline, "Goodbye, Jesse." Although his brother's death had sealed Jesse's status as an American legend, Frank James decided he preferred to live on in the real world, rather than just American lore. 5 months after his brother was murdered, he turned himself in to the governor of Missouri, stating, "I have been hunted for 21 years, have literally lived in the saddle, have never known a day of perfect peace. It was one long, anxious, inexorable, eternal vigil." Luckily for him, the allure of the James brothers lingered long enough to ensure that 3 separate juries failed to convict Frank of any crime. Frank went on to live a relatively normal life for the next 3 decades. He coasted off of his former celebrity status by touring the country as part of a traveling theater company. Far from lapsing back into his former outlaw ways, the only connection he had with his past life as a criminal was when he and his old fellow gang member Cole Younger teamed up to produce the James Younger Wild West show. In contrast to his brother's bloody demise, Frank James passed away peacefully on his family's Missouri farm at the ripe old age of 72. In conclusion, the story of Frank James stands as a testament to the complexities of human nature and the varied paths that individuals can take, even when faced with similar circumstances. While his infamous brother Jesse James became synonymous with the daring exploits of the American Wild West, Frank James opted for a quieter existence marked by family, literature, and a desire for stability. Despite sharing a bond of brotherhood, the differences between Frank and Jesse were stark. Jesse's hunger for fame and his audacious approach to crime set him apart from Frank's introspective and bookish nature. Jesse reveled in the spotlight, orchestrating bold heists and even issuing his own press releases, while Frank gravitated towards a more subdued life. Frank's preference for reading and attachment to his family showcased a side that contrasted with his role as an outlaw. The American Civil War played a pivotal role in shaping both brothers' lives. Frank's involvement with Confederate guerrillas demonstrated his commitment to the Southern cause, albeit in a violent manner. The war left indelible scars on the nation's psyche, fanning the flames of resentment and regional divisions that continued to linger even after the conflict ended. The James brothers' criminal activities, often directed towards trains and banks, added another layer to their story. Newspapers eagerly capitalized on their infamy, painting them as heroes and symbols of defiance against Northern authority. However, their actions also led to tragic consequences, particularly the murder of innocent individuals during robberies, which tarnished their Robin Hood-like image and eroded public support. In the end, Frank James chose a different path from his brother's fate. Unlike Jesse, who met a violent end at the hands of his own gang member, Frank embraced a quieter existence after his brother's death. He surrendered himself, seeking respite from a life of constant vigilance. Remarkably, despite his involvement in criminal activities, Frank managed to evade conviction and spent his later years touring the country and producing shows that capitalized on his former notoriety. Frank James's peaceful passing at the age of 72 on his family's farm in Missouri marked the conclusion of a complex life marked by contrasts and contradictions. His story serves as a reminder that even within a narrative of crime and rebellion, individuals are multidimensional, capable of change and adaptation. The tale of the James brothers encapsulates the intricate interplay of personal choices, historical circumstances, and the enduring allure of the American Wild West.